Welcome to the Museum of Anthropology, California State University, Chico. The museum is a very special place, even within the United States, because it represents a showcase for student-prepared exhibits based on their studies in a 4-year program of museology offered on campus. What we are proud of particularly is the fact that we are able to give them the skills in museum management and collection and also museum exhibit design. And as they leave the university, they then have job opportunities throughout the United States and in many cases also around the world. So I'm having the pleasure of watching the dream come true of seeing the students working here and being able to be a participant in some of their activities. And of course, I'm also deeply honored that they chose to focus on the area of my personal research, which has been for the past 50 years in the North American Arctic. The feedback that we've had from students suggests that our dreams are being fulfilled by them out there in the field. Some of our students are working in foreign countries, including the Arab Emirates, in Botswana, in Namibia, in Jordan, to name some of the Central Asian countries. And also, we're receiving, by way of feedback, our suggestions that there are a number of employment opportunities available for archivists and curators across the United States at quite substantial salaries. Having the museum open in January this year, 2010, is in every sense a dream come true. For the 30 years that I taught on the campus, I watched the development of the museum program as an outsider, more or less aware that the program itself was excellent, but that the students had very little space in which to display their work. Looking about, I thought, maybe a contribution to the museum would enhance their opportunities, and indeed the space became available. The museum now has 4,000 square feet of exhibit space, and the students have ample room for the demonstration of their work and also to build them around a specific theme. In this case, this year, the opening season is the Living on Top of the World, or a study of Arctic cultures and survival. I like this particular display. To me, it represents the techniques that we prize. An individual student decided he wanted to demonstrate a seal. He designed his own iceberg. He obtained the backdrop of the iceberg, and here we have a student's presentation. It's a nice piece. I first went to Alaska in 1950. My mother and I drove up to Alaska, and while we were in Fairbanks, I saw an ad in the newspaper about an Arctic tour. I'd never been on an airplane. I'd never seen the Arctic. So I thought, let's give it a try. So we flew in a Wien aircraft with 8 passengers out to Kotzebue and landed there to spend some days. And as I gathered up my camera equipment and went out on the beach to explore, this being a great adventure, I met with a distinguished-looking gentleman with a little white goatee who looked at me very curiously and said, "Who are you and why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm Valene Smith and I teach at City College in Los Angeles. I teach anthropology, and this is 60 years ago, we have to remember. I'm young and I came to learn something about the Arctic so I could better explain it to my students." "Well," he said, "I'm Ivor Scarlett from the University of Alaska, and I'm professor of anthropology." He said, "Let me show you around." So I had Arctic 101 from the leading expert. A few years later, Dr. Scarlett passed away. Reflecting on that fact, I thought, I probably know more about the Arctic now than anyone else. So maybe this is my obligation to return, make it my life study. I liked the Arctic. I liked the Eskimo, or Inupiat as we now term them. I understood their culture. I knew that I could function well within that culture. And I think that's very important as an anthropologist. You need to be able to be comfortable to live as they live, to eat as they eat, to perform as many of the tasks as they do. I can cut a seal. I have an ulu of my own, and so I became enculturated into it, and it's been a wonderful life study, and I'm grateful I had those opportunities. Hello, Hilda. Hilda is an Inupiat from St. Lawrence Island. out of the Bering Straits. When I visited there in 1965, I knew that she had made one such parka as this from bird skin. I asked her if she would make one for me, and she said yes. It will probably take 2 years, however, before you receive it. My son will have to get the skins, and it takes about 80 birds to put it together, and then they have to be tanned and sewn together, but eventually it did come. And then, as it happened, a couple of years after that, we were making the documentary film, Three Stone Blades, and here was the perfect garment for the leading lady, the heroine, to wear. Every time she fell in the making of the film by design, I worried that it would tear the parka, but it survived nicely, and today it's considered very much one of a kind. Maybe, perhaps there's one other in existence at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., but even they think that ours is the better of them. I wore those mucklucks. I wore them in graduate school at the University of Utah, as a matter of fact. However, I point out that you can only wear shoes like that where the snow is soft and powdery. Some of the pictures of my activities in the Arctic over the period of 60 years that I was back and forth, some of the friends and people whom I met and with whom I'm closely associated, and also a wonderful picture of my mother and me on our fishing trip in Alaska in 1950, which then took us out to the Arctic as well.
What's it feel like to have your stuff?
When do I get it back?